And go live. All right.
Yeah, like this background is very slick. See, like my laptop actually can handle this plugin to put in other stuff behind me.
Yeah, my phone doesn't do the same thing. I wish it could. All right, we're actually live streaming today behind the scenes of BUNS Solo with the devs. Today I have with me Stefan Baier, our COO, and Elizabeth, the producer in charge of Bake and Switch. This is your baby, Elizabeth.
Hello.
Oh, but not called Aiken switch on your screen.
I can do no wrong
Okay.
side.
Sounds bacon witch.
Aiken which that would be great, like to make more points for it. So it's good news, right? Like we just got news, that our patch is approved and all that stuff. So our plans are all going to work out as intended. It's nice, huh? A couple days, like they're on top of it as usual. So
Yeah, that'd be great. I mean, finally we get the patch out. It was very painful to get this patch out.
Yeah, it was a tough one, but we really hope that people can enjoy this new patch because it's I guess it's gonna please some certain crowds. I hope so.
patch is like an understatement, guys. I mean, this like it's like a monster, right? I mean,
Yeah, it's a pretty huge
like
update.
3 months of effort, and pretty much like tons of features that didn't quite make it for launch are like in this one, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's funny for me, like Shroomagaddon has always kind of been the thing for a while, but I think single player is actually going to get more attention. Like the more I think about it.
Yeah, actually, perhaps. I mean, a lot of people were asking for single player. That was a big thing on their list. Even if you look at the reviewers, a lot of them are asking, "Where's single player? I can't play it alone." And then
Well, now we're gonna have it.
Yeah, now you got it. Elizabeth looks a bit dead.
It's the morning, so yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm proud of what the team has accomplished. But like, we held our date for the summer, like we said. We said to Kickstarter and everyone else, here is the online game, for you and your friends to play. That was the mission. We accomplished the mission. And now there's additional feedback, and we're doing a lot of the stuff that we had planned for. Now we actually have time to do it, right? And I guess we have the infrastructure to do this, right? So I'm really happy for this, that we can keep going back to the game and doing more things on it. And this is only the beginning, right? Like this is more experimentation. We're doing like things like what do we call this? Is it called the avatar swap? Is that how we call
Yeah, the Doe avatar swap. We're gonna see that in the world map, where players are able to just. Currently, we have the little bun Doe avatar running around the world map. Now you can change it into the other buns like the Dodo, even with different flavors. So I hope that's something that people can find it entertaining.
I think they're going to. Izzal, can you send me the link to Twitch? I'm going to broadcast it actually on the channel right now.
Send it to one of our chats.
One of our
Yeah.
one of our chats. Hold on, we have like a.
I don't know whether I should name the chat. So we're actually seeing BUNS Solo gameplay on the screen right now. So if anybody's, for all the viewers who are watching right now, you can actually see how we actually got the single player mechanics to work. Because obviously playing a 4-player game solo is not going to be easy, so we added a couple mechanics in there to make that a bit easier for you.
I think we should have named it like companion basket or like like in Castaway, so, the buddy basket.
Or like the one where he had a coconut and named it as his friend.
Yeah, exactly.
What was his coconut name? I forgot about that.
Yeah. It's interesting. I'm watching it here as well. Like like when you play single player, it is really kind of a different experience. It's almost like a bit of like a meditation, right? You have a better kind of sense of what you're doing, what the buns are up to, and like leveraging their strengths. At least that's how it feels like to me, right?
I guess so. Yeah, you can say it's chaotic, but a bit more controlled. And I think one advantage that I can find when playing the bun solo is that you can really feel the advantage of the big bun behaviors. Gives them time to actually. You can see the Dorilla stomping at the spore when you're way on a different corner of the map. Or like the dodo, when it's big, you can actually see how it's very helpful when it goes into the oven when it's huge already.
Yeah, I think that was one of the major points that we wanted to communicate across. Because in co-op mode, it's kind of hard for you to see the doe behaviors. For people who are watching, I don't know whether you guys noticed, but the does actually have different behaviors
Yeah.
The gorillas stomp on moldies and bad guys. The little bun, once he gets big enough, and not so little anymore, ends up cannibalizing his friends. So they kind of auto-stack themselves.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a lot more apparent in single player because, yeah, like Elizabeth said, you know, when there are a lot less people doing things, the duos kind of have the time to shine.
Yeah, it's kind of tricky, you know, like it's true that the game does play differently with different team sizes, right? So that is something we're looking at in terms of balancing, because obviously we've noticed there are a lot of two players, a lot of couples playing the game. So kind of keeping, you know, a couple of the mechanics in mind for that. Then we have single player, we kind of had to change some of the behaviors a little bit. And of course, 3 or 4 players, it kind of gets a bit crazy, right? And then you have tons and tons of little dodos running around and everything. So it kind of has a different feel to it. Right, so that is, I think, something that we're going to keep on sort of iterating on, kind of balancing on as well, also for the future. You know, like where is like, you know, is it still too easy with 4 players? Because that's something that some players were saying, right? And what we're doing against that, I guess, you know, to kind of make that nice and balanced. It's tricky because the levels can kind of like, you know, like because you have, I don't want to say viral effects, but you know, like in the game, you can kind of multiply these bun types, right? So you can kind of sometimes hit this kind of edge where it just goes nuts, right? And you kind of like that too. Like I don't want to nerf that too much, right? I don't think the team wants to nerf that.
No, I definitely don't want to nerf that. It's just, I mean, it's a tricky thing to balance, especially to have a 4-player game be balanced for a single-player game. I think that was one of the biggest challenges, you know, going through each map and making sure that it was balanced enough for single-player play. But I think the team managed to pull off something pretty cool.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite levels right here, this one, you know, because there's really so much player choice, you know, but at the same time, we did kind of focus in a couple of the gameplay a bit, like, you know, there's a wall behind the platform, so it makes it a bit easier to score in the basket as it moves back and forth.
Yeah.
I really like this one. It kind of shows, I think, really what single player can be, right? Like how you can do it.
I mean, it plays a lot like a puzzle.
Yeah, it really is a puzzle.
Yeah, you're planning your next step. You're thinking, oh, okay, I have a dodo stack of like 15 in that corner. He's close to the oven, so you know I could leave him alone and he'll fly into the oven. And then you have a stack of gorillas on the other side, and you're like, okay, there's a big gorilla right there. We can see it right there. There's a big gorilla right at the spawner.
It's actually smart, yeah.
So if you were actually to leave the gorilla there, he would have just stomped on the spore right there. Right? So you see, right there. There you go. He just did it.
Yeah. I think that kind of stuff you're going to see more, you know, in future levels. You know, if this is received well, you know, this first round of single-player maps, I think there's going to be more that are going to be custom just for one player, right? Like very, like, you know, specific gameplay. Like, for example, that you really have to use, you know, the dodo flying abilities. You know, you can't even get to the basket in other ways. You know, or really using like, you know, the gorilla for like defending a certain corner, like that kind of stuff. I think is really interesting. But you can't really do that when you have more than one player. So I think that'll be really, really interesting.
Yeah, I think when you have more than one player, everyone's just rushing to get everything done, so you don't really get to see the doe behaviors when they're big so much. So players would just tend to interrupt their behavior. While in BUNS solo, you can, well, basically you're busy with your own thing, and then the does will help you out.
Oh no, the poor dodo almost made it.
He almost made it. I was watching him. He was like, oh, he's making his way over there. So close. And that's lucky got it.
Yeah, that's still what I'm wondering. Like sometimes, you know, like if we should still even emphasize it a bit more. You know, I know the team is kind of going back and forth on that. Right? Like you make the dodo run faster or something, you know, or more behaviors. But then I know that there's other interesting ideas the team is working on, right? So it's just, I mean, I guess we're in a good place in terms of just like we have a lot of really cool mechanics there. And, you know, the player feedback has been really helpful, always helpful over the last year already for like, where do we go and take the game now, right? That's really interesting to me. Like, what is going to be sort of the feedback on this? Because it's going to, you know, it can evolve further. You know, this is kind of like our strategy for the game, right? Like, we can really adjust it, right? And there's still a lot of stuff we're planning. I mean, we already have some plans until middle of next year, right? So it's kind of an interesting way to make games, I have to say.
I think to go back on the dodo point there, I mean, I remember there was a point of discussion where people wanted to make the dodo fly faster. But then there's also the issue of, you know, because I think it flies. What stack does it fly, Elizabeth? At which point?
Stack 6,
Stack
7.
6. So then
Yeah.
you end up having a stack 6, you know, sacrificing itself to the oven, and then you're like, oh wait, that's too soon. I kind of want to stack it up a bit more. So if you make it too fast, you know, you can't catch him and you can't cancel that, you know. So
Yeah.
pros and cons.
That's true. That's true.
You know, it would be interesting if like really come up with like a little, you know, graphic or something that kind of indicates, okay, you know, in 2 seconds this thing is gonna perform its special, right? And maybe that time goes shorter the bigger the bun is or something, right? We could experiment with
So
stuff
like a
like
timer kind of thing.
yeah. Because I know I think this mechanic is actually still in the game, right? Like that if you slap them, then they will do their special, but it's still kind of mean, right? And I don't think a lot of people want to do that, right? Like if you punch them, they actually
think about it. Everything's kind of.
There we go. Now the
They're
birds.
not animals, guys. They're not animals.
There it goes.
They're does. This is them fulfilling that purpose and reaching nirvana. Okay.
Yeah, they really want to do that, right? I think that's, you know, it's, yeah. The good thing is you have all these pieces. We can do different things, which is going to be really fun.
This level is difficult.
Yeah, this level like makes or breaks friendships. You've already seen that before.
Yeah, it's having the doors. Seeing them getting.
Where is it though? You mean the waterfall one?
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
This would be fun though if it was really competitive. Like if you had like team versus team or something, because like the mechanic of the water really gets sort of in the way of that. You affect you quite a bit.
That would be an interesting thought. I'm pretty sure. I think we have like other really crazy cool ideas that we have in PvP. I mean the other things that we've discussed, Stefan, that we will probably not reveal yet.
Yeah. I mean, like you guys just did the, you know, the last post-mortem iteration, right? So I'm sure there's a lot of really good ideas coming from it. And that's kind of the point, right? Is like really allowing us to experiment and so listen to the player feedback internally, player feedback from Discord, and sort of see, all right, where to next, right?
Yeah.
It was like what, a 6-hour session you guys did yesterday?
Almost, it was 8 hours, right?
Jesus.
It's 6 actually. Well, actually 6 or 7.
That's good though.
It was a good session. Yeah.
Yeah, I think everybody's starting to realize, you know, it's one of those things that just gets better over time. The launch of a game is not really its defining factor.
Yeah.
It really just grows into its own being. As long as you don't give up on it.
Yeah, you know, it's true, but I think you have to be set up for that. You know, as a studio, you know, like if you're not ready to invest into it like this way, then it's going to be more tricky, right? Like if everything has to be on like one day, right? Then it's like tricky if we move on to another project, right? But because this is our own, you know, we can take our time and experiment, which is actually really lovely.
Yeah, completely agree. I mean, if this was another one of those projects that we launched and forgot about, it definitely wouldn't have come into its own. I mean, all of what you're seeing right now wouldn't be here.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, you know, like this is, you know, it's hard maybe from the outside to see how this game kind of came to be, right? Where it's like, actually, the team wanted to make this kind of a game that's very different, I guess, from everything else we've been doing at the time, which was like more sort of serious, hardcore stuff, right? And it's like we want to do collaborative, we want to do something fun and quirky, and you know, we just said, okay, just go for it, guys, make it happen, and they did, you know. And I think that's really the amazing kind of learning lessons we're getting out of this is really incredible. You know, just for how the team has grown over the last 2 years on this alone, right? I mean, sort of super happy with that.
Yeah, what do you think, Elizabeth? Based on like from launch to where we are now?
Well, yeah, the team has gone quite a long way with a lot of iterations and discussions. I think we tried out so many things just to find that fun factor. It's always a tricky thing, and that balance, the game balance. But I think finally, I hope we kind of finally found that awesome sauce, a good sweet spot on where to get the game into what direction. So yeah, team has done really well, I have to say. I think it was a really good learning ground for us as well, to improve as a game dev. So yeah, I hope we can basically tackle more bigger games as well, or like challenges in Bacon Switch itself.
Answering a question here on Discord, like we're still having stragglers, I think, in regards to the, the keys being sent out. Backer is really
That's still a thing.
for us here.
Oh boy.
We chose Steam or Switch. Emails have been tricky with some people.
Some stranglers? What do you mean? What's that?
Some people haven't gotten their keys.
Oh.
Yeah.
Sorry to those people.
Yeah, we're using the system, and the system has, I don't know, we're having issues with it. There seems to be sometimes where people don't get their keys, even though it says that keys were sent out, and we're just like, hey, I just pressed this button yesterday. And you're like, what are the keys?
Yeah, I think that link is actually really important. Did you guys see that? Like, there's a link we can share with the backers, and they can just go to BackerKit, and then they should be able to log in there.
Yeah.
It's probably the better way to do it.
True.
Right.
We hope they will all be optimized.
But that means that we control the email, right? So we like, at least for future stuff, maybe we set up like our own email blast, and then that includes the link to BackerKit or something. Because I think their email system is really what we're getting problems with, right?
True. Yeah, for future reference. Hopefully everybody's pretty much sorted out right now. I'm pretty sure I sent out like, I don't know, 900 emails or something. Making sure everybody got the keys.
So let me ask you guys, like, looking at, I mean, I don't want to call it a patch, it's really a massive update, right? Like the first big update, for the game. Like, what are sort of like some of the lessons we've learned where we say, okay, for future big updates, here's like things we're going to do differently. Anything comes to mind for you guys? Or just like, yeah, perfection?
Well, currently we're still figuring out what we're going to do for our next update. We have ideas. I think it's time for us to just prioritize on what we can do in a certain time period. And then we'll see what we come up from there, from that discussion.
The only thing I would say to that is we are listening.
Yeah.
So a lot of the things you guys have mentioned, we are looking at it and thinking, how do we pull this off?
Yeah, I mean...
Yeah, some of the features are a bit more difficult to pull off than others. So
I think what the designers are grappling with, and I mean, I wasn't in the postmortem. I wanted you guys to do that independently. It's kind of like, the game is different things for different people, right? Like, there's kind of like people that really love the cuteness of the buns and sort of everything relating to the bun factor. Others love the collaborative aspects, right? Then there's a lot of sort of couple players, like the two players that do their thing. And I think we're about to make this worse for ourselves by adding single player into it. So we're going to get, pushed into that direction. But I mean, that's kind of intentional, I guess, right? So, I mean, let me ask you guys, for the team, like, do we have like some camps? Like, this is like the single player camp, this is like the PvP, crew, or is it just like, we're generally just kind of like finding our way, like the holistic piece through all of it? What do you guys think?
From what I've seen yesterday, there aren't camps. I think everybody's pretty much on the same page as to what would be best for the product. But like I mentioned to you, Stefan, the only discussions that we had was, how to pull off some of these things. There's different ways you can pull it off. So for example, single player, there were people who were talking about, having character swaps. And other people were saying, character swaps didn't play very well, so let's do something else. And that's how we have the current activation in single player here, the basket that we added in. Essentially, where you can park your doors and you won't get harmed. So yeah, it's those kind of conversations that we have, which is more of not what we should do, but more of how we should do it. And I think that's one really great thing about the game in the current state, because everybody's pretty much aware of what the best thing to do for the product is, at least in our opinion. So internally, we're all pretty much in sync, just more of how we're going to pull it off.
So let's talk about that for a minute. I'm curious too, actually. I'm sure we're going to get questions. People are going to be like, why are you guys doing single player differently than other games in our genre, right? Because character swaps is probably what people kind of expect. Why didn't we go for that? We did try that out, right?
Well, actually, because we also don't have the amount of time as well to test out character swap. So we did have an idea to actually have the characters, player characters, appear in the corner of the level where they can help out the single players. But I think that needed a lot more testing as well. So in the meantime, right now for a single player, we have the BUNS solo. I think for future, it is an excellent idea to have that character swap in the game. But perhaps we can reserve that for another edition of the game, for perhaps potentially a new game mode. So, yeah, well, a lot of thinking to do, a lot of discussing and testing, definitely.
Yeah, we're not afraid to test things. But it's interesting because I think I've seen the character helping thing. I've seen that just like the other day. It's actually even in some of these, some of this footage. I don't think that part has been removed. I think that's still in there. But I think what we're not doing right now is like, that a second character lives in the court somewhere and that you like possess them type of thing, right? Because this is like the normal way, I guess, how a lot of couch co-op games kind of handle single player.
Yeah, I think the big issue with that was that when we tried it out, it wasn't as intuitive. It felt clunky, and it didn't feel very helpful, for the lack of a better term. Because mainly when you're playing solo, it's not who you're using, it's more of how many people do you have control of. I think that's the biggest thing that you need to kind of reconcile between having a 4-player game versus playing solo. Just how many hands do you have, right? Switching the characters didn't help us in getting more hands. So these baskets kind of function as those extra hands. Just at least for safekeeping. They don't function like a full player does, but at least they function as a method to kind of make it easier for you to merge buns and make sure the buns don't get clobbered by a bunch of moldies.
I think it goes to the puzzle element of like, you are one player and you have to navigate the code. I mean, just look at, the current play is just all about how do I traverse, this kind of really, like zillions of things going on, right? Like there's buns being stolen, being moldified, like walking all over the place. And you have to figure out as a player how to manage that. There's always decisions, per second to be made. And I think for, some other games where it's more about like, like this sort of the kitchen simulation aspect, you actually like queue up choices, which I think for our gameplay, like there's no queuing, there's just like acting.
Yeah, pretty much. You basically just need to figure out a way to mitigate the issue. I mean, I guess prepare beforehand. So for example, like what we see over here, we have this player just stacking up different types of dough in each basket. So then whenever the oven requests for that certain dough, then it's ready. It's already there in the basket. So yeah, basically a lot of own preparation. Yeah, kind of being strategic in your own way, something like that.
What if we're going to make those puzzle elements actually more apparent, for future versions? I think that's going to be so interesting with this build coming out, right? It's just going to be so like something new for us to try out. I'm just really excited about that. Like, what are your predictions, I guess? Like, what are people going to say about the update? Are they going to be like, is it about the shroom levels? Is it about single player? About like, what do you think is going to stick out to you guys for the players?
I hope all of it, but personally, I think both updates, the Shroom and also the Shroomageddon and also the BUNS solo, they have their own perks and excitement. So for example, the Shroom, you really get to have a different experience in a way, because in the Shroom levels, basically they only spawn the moldy doughs. So that's a different kind of challenge where people just need to kind of punch and disinfect the doughs. And also you have a mini boss that appears there, which you will see. Well, I'm just going to say it's called the Ancient Moldy, where it gives another, I guess, element of dramaticness in the gameplay, which I hope can bring, I guess, a different experience for people, basically. And as for BUNS solo, like what you said, the puzzle, and people who play alone, they can still enjoy the map. we try to cater the original maps to fit in how it would play out for the single player. So I hope that can work out well for people.
What do you think the team was trying to kind of accomplish for for the gameplay in Trumageddon? Like, what was sort of the idea that kind of triggered that off? Like, you mentioned it's more action focused, I guess.
The extra focus, sorry.
You mentioned it's more action focused. Was that kind of what drove the shroom levels, or what is it you think the design team was trying to really make happen with the shroom levels?
Oh well, I guess we just wanted to have a different experience again with the level. Majority of it being moldy, and I guess you can even see in the level itself. It's just it looks shroomy, as you can see in this video here. You see everyone stuck in molds. So I hope this adds in a different dramatic experience for people. And also there is a challenge to unlock that certain level where you need to 3-star, and then you'll know how you can proceed on to access this shroom level. So there's an extra layer or step or challenge for people to actually enter this Shroomagaddon level.
It's like the comment we just got in Twitch, right? It's like the mayhem of yelling at your friends to go faster. We might make this even worse with the shroom levels, because look at this, like this is gonna be crazy in a good way, hopefully, right? Because it all starts just like a mess, like all moldy. And so it's really about I guess the stakes are higher because the level can more easily switch back into just, everything is infected, right? So I'm curious on that, just to see how the difficulty curve is perceived, right? Because we know that sometimes that's tricky for our levels, so I wonder if the maps are going to be seen as too easy for some players, or too hard for others. But
well, I don't think it will be a lot more difficult than the normal levels. It's just a different experience. We reserve the difficult levels for stormy levels.
Okay. Yeah, we need to maybe even make it clear to people, because I think when you see stormy levels, they look really scary, but they're not as difficult as stormy levels, right? So it's really
they are not.
Stormy and stormy, right?
Right. So for shroomy levels, again, just different experience, and also everything's just a lot more shroomier and gloomy. We have a mini boss in it, and we have a new power up there as well that I can drop once in a while, which is very effective. It's called the cleansing. Basically it cleans up all the molds. So basically just use it prudently. As for the stormy, it's just a total. How you say? It's a very difficult level, I would say.
Yeah, I think I'm just really curious on the feedback from the players on Shroomy, because it is a bit more action focused, but not as difficult, right? So it's a very specific choice, right? To find something that is a bit more casual in play, like it's not stormy, but it has kind of a more action focus, right? And see how players kind of respond to that, right? So it's single play is a bit more puzzly, but then Shroom is a little bit more actiony, and you're kind of seeing what they're going to say about that.
I guess you can say, actiony. We'll see. Yeah, for me, I would feel it as a bit more dramatic, because when people start to see the ancient moldy, it kind of just spawns out like a dramatic Dracula bat coming out.
You even added that chime, right? Whenever the mini boss shows up, he has like
this organ playing, like a dramatic organ playing, like
we're looking back at single player, right? Because we just got some folks joining us. Welcome, for our latest Twitch viewers here. And yeah, this is single player. I think the first time we're showing it like this, full sessions. And you can kind of see like how we've made some adjustments. It plays a little bit. I mean, when I played, it feels almost like a meditation a little bit, because you really kind of watch the whole court, like where is what going on, predicting things, where things will happen, and of course using the baskets very strategically, by kind of preparing your vulnerable buns in the proper way. By the way, I just saw we just saw another baker spawn in there. Didn't you see that?
Yeah, that happened. I think that was Thyme. I think
Yeah,
Thyme
yeah.
showed up.
They do spawn and help you. Yeah.
So occasionally, whenever you're playing BUNS solo, the other bakers will pop in and kind of just throw a power up at you, just to kind of help you out.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the mechanics we put in there just so the players don't feel like they're actually solo, that they got a bit of help from their from their baker buddies. So yeah, I think it adds a bit to the game, just so you don't feel so, I guess, solo.
Yeah, I like it. This is also one of our new shroom costumes, right? I think.
Yeah, this is one of the new shroom costumes. All of the new shroom costumes obviously are very mushroom themed, very heavily inspired by, I guess, kind of hazmat suits.
Yeah, an infected hazmat suit, something like that.
Yeah, we need to figure it out because I think we're going to get a lot of questions on that. Like, people are going to be like, what is this world that you're building? You know, like, what is this room invasion? Like, hazmat suits. Oh, see, there's another spawn.
Yeah, right.
You know, and what, you know, like, a lot of questions in Discord about, like, the world of the BUNS, you know, like, what is the relationship with the shroomy versions or the moldy versions? And, like, you know, what does it all mean? You know, like, do they become zombies when they turn over because you can't convert them back? And what's the agenda at play, right? We're going to start, I think, trying to integrate it a bit more in our future iterations as well of the game. But it's a tricky balance, right, to do this.
Yeah,
I think for now.
there's just so many directions that we could take the game into right now that I think that's probably one of the most exciting things about it. You could delve more into PvP, you could delve more into co-op, you could delve more into more solo play. It's just a lot of options for us to figure out which one you want to go with to proceed to the next step. But I think definitely the main thing on our radar is just making it easier for people to play together. This is one of the things that we're currently looking at.
Yeah, definitely. Because it looks like, you know, like no one is going back to like going to the outside anytime soon. You know, like so.
That's sad,
Yay. 2021 looks somehow like 2020. I don't know what happened, but I guess we're stuck on repeat. Might as well make our game enhanced for online play.
Yep.
There was a question about like when single player is coming out. It's not officially announced yet, but let's just say it is very, very near. It's not next month, I think. So we can use what that means, but it's going to be announced very soon. Like it's only like maybe a day or two away from being announced. Right? And then this kind of information you find out first if you're part of you know, the Discord community, and especially part of our mailing list. Right? That's what that stuff will be announced first. But it's not far out now that we know that our Nintendo approval has gone through. You know, our dates are all secured as intended. You know, game development, everything happens like last minute. So,
yeah, pretty much. As nerve-wracking as it is, a lot of nail-biting moments.
Maybe the next time is a little bit less last minute, but we say that every time we do an update. So I don't know what
We've gotten a bit better. We've gotten a bit better.
It's not quite as crazy as it was before.
Yeah.
I'm happy with this. Yeah. And I think also, like, I think that the players will be quite surprised on the Switch. You know, the performance enhancements that have been made. Right, there's a lot of work the devs have done on that.
A lot of optimization is going on together with the devs and our creative director. But like a bunch of mad scientists just going through each of the levels and looking at the game. They've been like, why the hell is this so expensive? Why is this running at this thing? Why is this happening? Yeah, a lot of nights like those.
Yeah, a lot of profiling and performance testing.
Yeah, we've learned a lot about the Switch optimizations. Yeah. And this is cool, man. I just love it. I don't know what it is about this map, but it somehow like it encapsulates so many interesting ideas about single player. Right? It's like there's a lot of choices for the player. There's a lot of things going on in terms of the BUNS, but you know, you need to kind of like rein in, you know, all the crazy little ones, and then smartly using like the basket to store things, you know, like manage the bad guys. And if you're a good player like this one, right, like you put in, you know, like use the special abilities of the BUNS much more effectively. Yeah. Right? I think there's still something that we need to push up even further in more maps that we're going to be doing.
I think what makes this map so interesting is it's essentially 4 smaller maps in one big map, right? Because you have kind of like 4 sections in it. So
well, this is Well, this is basically the original map from co-op, but we kind of chop it up to cater for the single player. So as you can see, there's basically 2 half walls. Before this in co-op, it was just a full wall on one side. So then now it's a half wall, so single players can play it easily. So yeah, it's the original map, but we try to cater it for.
And I guess the benefit here is that we have a lot of maps that we were able to get into the game this way, right? Like it's not Shroomagedon maps, but it is all of single player, the base single player. And we can enhance it from there. Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah.
You know, you said something interesting about the previous map, right? Like that it's 4 little maps together. And the one thing that we haven't explored yet, if you're in single player, of course, you have the benefit that you could have the camera follow the player on a court that is bigger than the courts right now, you know, which are kind of built for being always visible for all 4 players. But if you only have 1 player, you could actually make a court that is bigger than the screen size, right? And you just kind of walk around and stuff like this. So it's just this kind of stuff that is going to be so interesting to see what the players are going to say, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think that's actually a very good idea. We haven't really discussed something like that yet before, but I guess, you know, that's another part of the process of, you know, we got single player in, all the hooks and all the structure is there. You know, it's up to us to kind of take it to the next level at this point. But that's an interesting idea. Yeah.
I mean, the sky's the limit on some of that stuff, right? It's just, yeah, it's just really, really rewarding to see that. Wow, I didn't know that the cauldron actually gets pushed by the water. That's funny.
Oh yeah.
Everything gets pushed by the water.
This level is like, we've seen it on some of the live streams, right? Like it breaks friendships. I guess
this is a really difficult level. This is the toughest level for me to play. I can't seem to get it right.
Well, you know, actually, it's yeah, I guess it's a frustrating level because of the water flow going down. But if you kind of communicate and assign people on certain corners of the waterfall, it's actually quite manageable. Yeah, but I guess sometimes it just doesn't work out for some people and gets frustrating. So
thank God for those baskets, though. Let's see, this is another one of the situations where I think the choice we did in using the basket as a mechanic as opposed to switching characters is extremely beneficial. Like, imagine if you're trying to handle this entire level without the basket, without being able to park your doors, right? And you only can switch characters. I don't think switching to, let's say, time, for example, I don't think that would have been very beneficial because your doors are going to end up flushed down the toilet, right?
Yeah, you'll be flushed around. And also, you pushed around. Like, our game is very like in motion, right? And I think adding another thing that moves around and like the second character would like just constantly die, like fall off of cliff somewhere, and like it wouldn't really work. Like unless we do it like in a fighting game where like you literally have another player that like comes on, you know, like you swap literally places. But then what's the fun in that, right? Like I think that isn't really as relevant as having like a strategic place on board somewhere.
Yeah, it goes back to my argument about the whole purpose of the basket is to act as your extra hands, because in a 4-player game you have 4 pairs of hands, and when you're playing a solo you have 1 pair of hands. And the difficulty is because the amount of hands that you have, right? You have only 1 pair of hands, making sure that the buns don't get infected, making sure that, you know, they're merging correctly, and making sure they're not, you know, falling into any pits or anything like that. So having only 1 pair of hands makes it very difficult to juggle all those various different tasks. So just having that basket there to park your buns and make sure they don't get harmed is, to me, a lot more beneficial as opposed to having the ability to swap between characters.
Yeah, I agree.
Even if you swap between characters, you still have only 1 pair of hands. It's not going to be...
I wonder if people are going to want to request and get the basket added to multiplayer. You know, because it is convenient.
You know, it's funny because internally, some people were actually asking about that in the team. Maybe we can have Bun Basket in the multiplayer too.
How do you steal from
No, I think we want to try to keep it exclusively for Bun Solo. As for now, I think so far, but we'll see how it goes. How people think.
It's interesting ideas. I mean, you know, like I wonder, like if there's going to be, you know, one part like a different category of objects, you know, play objects, like, you know, the basket you can grab, you know, and carry around and that kind of stuff, right? Or many crazy things like grabbing the oven and walk around with it or whatever, right? Like there's just different things you can do, right?
Right. Well, I guess someone, Fasil. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing it incorrectly, but I agree with this person. Basket in multiplayer might be a bit overpowering. Then the challenge is just it's less. So we'll reserve Bun Solo, Bun Basket for Bun Solo.
You
Yeah,
could think
that's
of a
how
way
I
to
feel.
allow you to steal each other's baskets. That seems interesting.
That would be interesting. Yeah.
And you beat
I think for
someone.
that, we'd have to figure out. I mean, I think what works. I mean, just looking at this, it feels more readable, right? Because it's one player, and you kind of like, especially some of the desert levels, they have like one major feature, right? Like this one, it all focuses into the center Sarlacc pit, right? So everything else kind of makes more sense because you're just one player. So I wonder if people are going to ask for maybe some more levels that are optimized for two players, and two players would make sense with baskets, for example, right? Like I'm curious what they're going to say there. Oh, okay, but here we go. Like in two-man multiplayer, they're just doing it with corners. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. We've got a PvP master at play here. Yeah. I mean that's the thing as well. Like if you do PvP just with one, like just by yourself, there are options in the future gameplay modes that we can explore more things with, right? So that is all stuff that we're trying to get ahead around. Like what is the best way to essentially channel the game, right? Like in terms of the design. And the moment we have the single player out, I think the idea is to do a little bit more with the online modes, and then really like once we have all three parts in play, we'll have a much better idea for really some of the more ambitious stuff that we want to do afterwards, right? So player feedback is going to be really important coming from there.
Yeah. I mean, one interesting idea that I always thought of for PvP would be, because currently all our PvP levels only they don't allow you to stack the buns very well. You tend to grab whatever the hell you can get your hands on and just toss it into the oven immediately, because otherwise someone's going to punch you and steal your dough, right?
Yeah, that's the chaos, I guess.
Like a thought came to my mind whether, like, let's say if the oven was on a timer base, that it only appears at certain times, so that between those times that is not active, you would essentially have the time to stack the doughs. So then between that time, you're just punching each other trying to grab the dough. And then when the oven finally shows up, and then it's all hell breaks loose. Everybody's fighting over the dough, trying to toss into the oven. Right? It's one of the.
Those ideas would be interesting, but also, for example, lures would be interesting, right? Where it's like there could be some object that attracts buns, and they'll you can carry it around, and they'll follow you, and they'll just jump on it and grow themselves, type stuff, right? If you want to kind of control the battlefield a bit more, because looking at the gameplay, like one thing that players both love, but at one point also get exhausted by, like there's a lot of merging you need to do, like run every little two level bun, right? So having some things that allow you a bit more control over the battlefield, if you will, that might be interesting too. Right, so
it actually sounds like a good addition to like single player. A bundle, because I mean, if you see right now, there's a lot of buns over there.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you had some other stationary object that attracts them, you just toss it across the court, and then they'll kind of like self-merge for more higher stakes kind of maps. Those kind of things would be really interesting.
It could be one of the power-ups.
Could be. Or it's like an object. Like if it's an object, what makes it interesting is in team play. Like it could actually help you to to pass it between each other, and like maybe it's like the Holy Grail type object or something. There's only one on the court, and if you have it, like pass it around and it'll lure the buns. We're at a place where we have a lot of options, I guess, which is really
exactly
a good place to be, right? So we just keep optimizing sort of the core of the game in terms of the tech and everything, and then it's just about like what players want, right? So I know that our team is looking at that kind of stuff, but of course, the lore feedback is also there, right? It's like let us explore more of the world of the buns, right? Like that's where it gets tricky for us, right? Because then we have like somebody wanting tons of PvP enhancements, or single player.
Yeah.
What a good journey.
And this is we work best when we focus on one particular feature,
That's cool.
as opposed to trying to do everything at once. So definitely we're gonna pace ourselves to try to get things done properly, as opposed to kind of just shoving everything in the kitchen sink in there.
I like this level here, for being very kind of like once your mind understands the chaos as a puzzle, it becomes I think really interesting for single player, right? Because like all the elements are in play, right? Like you've got flavoring, you've got spawning, you've got kind of a moving oven type stuff. I think those maps. I'm really curious what players are going to say about that. single
Yeah, there's
player.
a couple of really high-level desert maps that I'm really curious how players would react to. So, for example, like the bowling level, that's one of the most, to me, it's one of my favorite levels. For the fact that the oven's constantly moving, and you you gotta aim your dough and time it just right for it to line up with the quicksand moving into the oven.
Interesting.
Like those levels are the ones that I'm curious to see how people will react to in single player, because that was pretty difficult level for me.
Was that the water sound?
I think so.
Yes.
Nah, this is cool. So then we haven't announced a date yet, so we have to be careful with this. But I mean, it's not far off. And I think, are we doing it simultaneously? I think we're still trying to, right? Steam and Switch.
We're attempting to.
Yeah. We're still trying to, yes.
Yeah, as with anything game dev, it's really hard to put a date on something. The only time you put a date on anything is when someone really hammers you for it. Yeah, I mean these levels.
It's actually pretty impressive that we were able to keep that in sync so far. Do you think also next year?
Sorry?
Do you think do you think we'll keep that running also next year?
Probably.
That we can do a simultaneous?
I mean, it gets more complicated the more platforms you add into it, because currently I guess we're lucky enough to only be on Switch and PC. The more you add platforms, so let's say, I mean, whenever we end up launching the PS4 version or I don't know, maybe in the future an Xbox version of the game, lining it up is going to be more difficult because each of the platforms have their own technical requirements that we have to adhere to, and they all have the different varying approval times.
Yep.
So yeah, we'll see what happens with that. It's one of those things that I keep at the back of my mind and think of, we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
I think the good thing right now, I guess, is that we want, like, there was a lot of, obviously, like a year of attention on Steam, and the big question was always, when is Switch coming? When is Switch coming? So I think we always wanted to make sure that at least for Switch and PC, we try to keep them in line with each other, right? So people don't feel that we're prioritizing one over the other, right? That somehow, let's say, Switch comes out like later type stuff, right? So I'm happy that we were able to manage that, right? I mean, I think that's going to be really, really fun to see. And also it allows us to compare immediately, right? Like if it comes out on the same day between the two. But I agree, I don't foresee it continuing like that into next year all the way. Because in the end we have to prioritize the product, right? And sort of like what makes sense there.
Yeah, I mean you see it with a lot of other games as well. Games that I play very often, like Destiny 2, Warframe. They tend to do the lowest hanging fruit first. So PC is the lowest hanging fruit. It's one of the easiest to update. Has the shortest approval times, quickest checks. So those always end up going first, and then PS4, PS4, Xbox, and all the other platforms end up being like 1 or 2 weeks later, or like sometimes even a month later. So it's definitely common practice in the games industry. It's just more of, for us, it's making sure that whatever we end up choosing as the first platform is, I guess, has the correct audience with it. We want to hit our main target audience with whatever releases we release in the future. I think Kelfusil, yeah, I completely agree with you. Yeah, those two are good examples, Warframe and Destiny 2. But then again, those studios aren't exactly indie, and the size of their development team is quite substantial compared to ours. So yeah, we'll see how we fare next year.
Yeah, we'll see. But definitely we kind of gauge that perhaps Bacon Switches, our audience are catered for the Switch player. So we want to try to prioritize on the Switch and of course PC, the low-hanging fruit ones, like what Izzal said. So fingers crossed.
Sometimes, right? Because there has been a strong kind of community of PC players following the game. Since the early betas, right? So it's kind of an interesting split, right? Where there's more casual players, I think, on Switch, but like this little bit more maybe competitive ones play on Steam, right? So it's nice that we're keeping it at least right now, like in sync. Yeah, like once we have the PlayStation version, all that stuff into it, we're gonna have to see, right? Also, yeah, I think this is gonna branch out a little bit. between the versions of like also like we have to figure out like PS5 and all these kind of things, right? That's all coming down the pipe.
The dev kits for PS5, yeah. Definitely get our hands on those.
They're doing it just at scale, right? Like that's the problem when you do like a 4-player game or more modes. Like like your dev kit supply has to be times 4. Just imagine we do a mode that has like 8 players in it, then it's like times 8. Going up. Look at this level. This is crazy. Like 15, 15, 12, like double digits.
Yes.
I mean,
right there.
It is the Shermageddon level. So that was 15 stack of 3 stacks of 15s. That's what you get if you defeat the Ancient Moldy. I don't know if you can rewind this, but you can get a glimpse of the Ancient Moldy. Oh, maybe not. Well, you can check out that video in YouTube, I guess. Is it in YouTube?
Oh, there's an Ancient Moldy right there.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, that 100 stack there on the corner.
Easy 100 stack.
Yeah, look at all the moldies though.
I mean, if I saw this, like, I would not think that this is easier than Stormy. You know what I mean? It looks pretty intimidating. So I'm curious what people will say when they get in there, right? And I guess the other part as well is like, it's like a level 100, right? Like it just sounds intimidating. But as players get into it, they'll see like it's actually not such a big deal.
Yeah, I think the mini boss is actually one of those things that actually makes the mode a bit easier. Once you know how to tackle the mini boss, is not super difficult to kill. Well, not kill, super difficult to decontaminate and end up tossing him into the oven. But yeah, once you know the tricks that you need to pull off to decontaminate him, tossing in 100 stack, that's substantial, and I think that's one of the major things that people keep in mind when they're playing the Shroomy levels.
I guess we just didn't go as nuts as like Stormy maps like this one, where there's like dough balls trying to kill you and lightning strikes.
Yeah.
Things, right? They're just like what else? What can we throw at the players? So it's kind of like a more nuanced.
Yeah, Stormy
approach.
levels is kind of akin to Cuphead, I guess, in terms of difficulty. Anything we toss things in there just to make the life a bit more difficult, but not impossible to finish a level. But I think the challenge, a lot of players will actually enjoy the challenge of navigating through. I mean, for example, look at all these boulders rolling around the screen and all the lightning zaps that are happening. Just keeping that in mind and navigating through all those difficult mechanics and tossing the bun in at the end. I think that will be very rewarding for a lot of people.
We actually haven't done these boulder like chasing you like in single player maps yet, right? So again, that's one thing that we should really ask our community. Give us feedback, like between the different play modes, like which parts do you think would maybe make sense to add into other parts of the play modes, right? Like, for example, does Stormy make sense for single player? I'm just saying, like, I don't know, right? Like, would that be something people are like, yes, I totally want to, like, abuse myself in difficult maps. I want that. I want to be chased by boulders and lightning strikes. Or is it more like, what about taking the basket into co-op and so on and so forth, right? So we need to maybe do like some surveys and stuff in the coming weeks just to get some more ideas on that as well.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. It was on our radar to have Stormy maps as part of single player, but just the level of tweaking and the amount of balancing that we would need to do with that, it was kind of what caused us to kind of veer away from it, mainly because we don't want to release Stormy when it's completely unbalanced.
Yeah, we need to kind of see what players say, I guess, like, because it could go both ways, right? Like, it could be that players love that it feels a bit more chill and it's more like a puzzle element, like some of the maps are, or people want to just kind of like get into the zone of like hardcore difficulty by yourself, right? That's going to be like a player choice. We got to figure that out. But yeah, good times.
Yeah,
I'm really excited to see that.
look at.
It's just nice to sometimes just see how far the game has already come. It's just like, wow. So yes, we'll be announcing very soon the date for all of these free updates, which comes with, why are they so glossy? Did you see that?
Yeah.
What is that?
They were wet.
Yeah, that's so weird.
Yeah, it was, yeah, I think it was the material.
For people to know, like, right, like Shroomageddon is going to stay in the game, like it's not just a Halloween thing, like those maps are permanently added, that's the first thing, right?
That's right.
Yes, the update, like it's not been announced yet, but it's literally like very soon. And by that I don't mean like game development very soon. Wow, that's like really green and gross. Yeah, like in the next 2 weeks. And you'll hear like probably the next 2 days about when the exact date is. And it's all coming out simultaneously. So Shroomageddon, BUNS Solo is all part of the same package. We just heard it's already been approved by Nintendo. So, that should be fine with that, and Steam should be no problem. So it's coming. Right? So what else is in there, right? Like there's the costumes are in there as well. There's the fact that you can switch the bun types on the minimap. There's an enormous amount of, I think, performance optimizations, right, that have been put in there. And I feel like I'm forgetting to say something. That was like something else we've changed. I think, rebalancing on some of the maps, especially for two-player mode, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, there was some rebalancing, and also I guess some tiny perks like the journey dialogue. So basically, in the world map, you'll be able to see some of the characters interacting with each other. I would like to call it baker's bickering. Also, that we are able to check out the cute cutscenes again in the main menu, because I know some people only got to see the cutscenes only one time when they play it, and now we have a gallery which we call the theater. So it's just these small things that maybe can enhance players' experience.
But there's also more, right? Like there are more cutscenes we've added, or is that in?
Yes, we do have more cutscenes added. Yes, correct.
Okay.
Some preludes building up, the boss preludes building up towards the boss level. So there are a number of new cutscenes there. So I hope people find it cute and entertaining.
I think they will. Cool. I think that was our hour's almost coming up here. So we got a couple more folks is joining. Like welcome. You guys have any keen questions? Now please fire them away. I know that obviously single player date is a key question that is like very, very close. Like you need to stand by on that. Make sure you're on our newsletter. We'll announce it, I think, in the next 2 days, and the date literally won't be much behind that, to be honest. So it's coming very, very soon.
Yeah, a lot of cool updates.
Yeah.
We're already thinking of the next update, and I gotta say it's a substantial one as well. The one that's coming after this one, so.
So what we're going to try to do here, and I'm sorry, we don't know how to say a name, Kelphisil. Sorry. Yes, the idea is actually what we're going to try to do is, do more of these streams every weekend for us. I guess every Friday evening, US time, and people can ask us here. If we're open to interviews, of course, that's fine too. Like we're kind of emerging out of our post-update mode right now. And kind of figuring out our strategy for next year. So we're kind of like getting our headspace back. Happy to do interviews, and obviously we'll keep talking here about sort of these like I don't know what is it, like dev diaries. Like just kind of like catching up, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, streams like this where we just sit down and just with a bunch of other people and just start talking about the game, just looking at the game in its current state.
Because one thing we've noticed, I guess, is like, when we play the game in play streams, we don't talk as much about it. And I think players really want to kind of have us talk about the game a bit more, right? So we decided we're going to record ourselves playing it sort of beforehand, and then kind of like just have a real conversation like this, right?
Yeah.
So it's not like we're not that great at multitasking. At least I'm not.
I'm not either. I mean, I end up concentrating too hard. I become extremely silent when I'm totally focused.
Yeah, imagine we play like PvP, then you just won't hear any talking, right?
You'll just hear trash talking at that point.
I would trash talk, unfortunately.
Really?
Yeah.
Elizabeth's
A lot
vocabulary
of
has
questions,
grown significantly.
Yeah, sure. You just message us on Discord, and we'll be able to line that up if somebody wants to do. Shark Gate, what is that icon? I can't tell.
I love that icon. It's a shark going, hooray! That's cute.
Yeah. No, that we can definitely. The thing is, this is a very open development, right? Like ever since we decided to go to Kickstarter and just kind of like bear it all, if you will, like early on, we're like, yep, we got screwed by the virus, and now we have to change our strategy. And ever since then, we built a community, and it's been really rewarding experience. And so
it feels like ages ago. Oh my god.
It wasn't even that long ago, man. Like it's just this year just feels like endless. I think. That's pretty much what it is. So you know we're gonna keep doing that. I mean the good thing is we're self-publishing, so you know if we mess up any announcements or like we say things we're not supposed to say, it's all just on us. You know, we can only blame ourselves, which is kind of liberating. I can tell you, like you know, just working this way. So
Yeah, I agree.
yeah, and it makes it also easy for us to change the design and really empower the devs to just kind of like do whatever they want to do in a sense, right? I mean, within limit. You know? Hopefully, the game doesn't like turn into like you know, like an MMO version or something. You know, in one direction.
MMO with loot
Technical
boxes
squad
and
based. You know, it's like what happened?
procedurally generated.
Well, that would be cool. You know, they actually would probably do
That
something.
would kill our team.
Yeah.
Shout out to Hyperlight up
Oh, cool.
Professor, yeah. Shameless plug.
Well, Hyperlight, you know, if you need any additional materials for the upcoming release, let us know. We'll get you an early batch, right? You can get in there with single player and with Shroommageddon and all the other stuff, and we can do an interview. That's no problem. You guys are awesome. That's a lot of sharks.
Let's go.
Let's go. Yeah, I mean, you know, the team is going to work on this for quite a while. You know, keep growing it, and so it's kind of like I guess a different way of doing development, but we embrace it. So yeah, I think just staying on the radar and working with us and commenting and growing the game, it only is going to make this actually a more awesome experience. Making Battle Royale, yeah, this is an interesting idea. and somebody brought it up before, so yeah.
I think that was Bonso, senior designer.
Yeah.
I think he brought up before, trying to make it Battle Royale.
Cool. So I think that was a little bit over our time already. Unless Izzal, you have anything you want to get off your chest still for this week?
I guess just the last thing that we didn't really talk about was just the Kickstarter costume.
Oh yeah.
On that. We sent out the survey, and apparently Sage won by a landslide.
Yeah.
So we're working on Sage's costume. So expect that in the upcoming months.
Yeah, we should actually put that on Discord as well. You know, like the costumes that were the candidates. But I'm not surprised that Sage won because Sage is just like, you know, I mean, with that name already, like it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I think she also fits the kawaii factor the most.
That's true. It actually has that kind of hairstyle that you can really modify and do stuff.
All right. Any last parting words, guys, before we wrap up the stream?
Let me check on Discord.
Hope you enjoy the game.
I guess, you know, one thing we'll have to figure is like what time works best. I think this is a good time to do it. This is our morning. On Saturday it's a bit weird, but at the same time it is, you know, evening in the US. So we'll keep exploring and iterating and baking lots of buns and puns. So thank you very much, everyone. Thanks to Elizabeth and Izzal for joining. And I'm gonna have breakfast now.
Yeah, same here. I'm gonna get breakfast and enjoy my weekend. So have a good weekend, guys.
Yeah, thank you for staying tuned. Until next time.
All right, see you guys. Bye bye.